Well, the Republican National Convention has come and gone. Did y'all see it? Yeah? I actually found it highly entertaining. You never knew what was going to happen next. I expect the Democratic Convention next week will be a lot more buttoned up, and thus probably not nearly so interesting. As I have shared with some of you, I am in something of a quandary this year, in that I am not particularly enamored of either candidate. Neither would be my first choice. That being the case, I suppose it's good that this morning's gospel is all about prayer. For I am and will continue to be in prayer about this, you may well believe. But one observation, if I might. I paid pretty close attention all week. And what I largely heard, with a few exceptions, was a message of fear and loathing. Fear of what might befall this nation, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! And loathing for Mrs. Clinton, and presumably those who support her. Now, I am reasonably certain that I will hear a similar message next week. Except that next week, the fear and loathing will be pointed at Mr. Trump and presumably his followers. Indeed, I do not recall a more vitriolic or difficult political season in my lifetime. And y'all, we got 4 more months of it. Woo! So, what's a Christian to do? I'm not going to tell you how to vote. Don't worry about that. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, I think it's really important to at least try to understand the other side. To try to understand both sides. To not assign evil to or make an enemy of someone simply because they disagree with me. I mean, how grandiose would I be if I did that? At the same time, as Christians, surely we are called to lead with love. And to remember that, in fact, we have nothing to fear. We have nothing to fear. Now, that is not hyperbole. For ultimately, we are safe and secure and indestructible, hidden with Christ in God. Indeed, if you think of it, our lives within this fragile and brief plane of existence, seemingly so important to us now, is but a bit on the radar screen of the cosmos, just a bit. And our lives on this earth are over. Our lives upon this earth are but the tiniest fraction of who and what we truly are. You see, we need to get grip. We need to get a little perspective. So don't panic. Relax. God's got this. He does. Vote your conscience by all means. But then lead with love. Lead with love. Hope that makes it a little bit easier for you. As I mentioned a few moments ago, our gospel for this morning is all about prayer, beginning with Luke's version of the Lord's Prayer. That version sounds a little funny to us, I know. The version we're familiar with is found in Matthew chapter 6. But in Luke it begins, we are told, when the disciples asked Jesus to teach them how to pray. Now, I must tell you, I find this absolutely fascinating. You know how you learn how to pray? By praying. That's the truth. But if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that Jesus knew how to pray. He knew how to pray. For example, I suspect that's all he did during the 40 days and 40 nights he was in the wilderness. After all, what else was there for him to do? Moreover, the Gospels are absolutely filled with sequences when Jesus goes off to a quiet place, or a lonely place, or a desolate place to pray. But I must tell you that I am reasonably certain that on those occasions Jesus did not say, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." Now, we have a New Testament scholar in York at the congregation today, so I don't know if he agrees with that or not. Nonetheless, Father. I believe that the Lord's Prayer essentially was intended to be a starter prayer for the disciples. A beginner's prayer, if you will, or a prayer to begin with, followed by prayers in whatever form of the heart. Of the heart. Now, as to prayers of the heart, Jesus has two pieces of advice for us. First, persistence pays off, and it's in fact the key. You got to keep at it, y'all. You got to keep your appointment with God. I have an ophthalmology appointment on Tuesday. I'm going to get my new glasses after my cataract surgery. You better believe I'm not going to miss that appointment. It's important to me. In the same way, we must keep our appointment with God. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened unto you. Now, you understand, I hope, that ultimately the only thing we truly long for is God and God alone. We were made for God. And so that's where our heart really lies. It's just that sometimes we mistake Him for a vacation home. You know, or a trip to Rome, or a new job, or a Buick, or whatever. But ultimately, it's only God that we truly seek. And while it's okay, I suppose, to pray for stuff, the older I get, the more I tend to leave the middleman out of it. And I simply pray directly to God, for God. That covers pretty much everything, I believe. You know, Father Richard Rohr says that essentially true prayer means to live consciously in the presence of God. That means to live consciously in the presence of God. Thomas Merton wrote that the deepest prayer of the heart is a perpetual surrender to God. A perpetual surrender. He also says that when I find myself, I will find God. And when I find God, I will find myself. And of course, it was St. Paul who advised that we were to pray without ceasing. I guess the bottom line is that as Christians, we are to live lives of prayer. We are to make our lives a prayer. The ultimate end of which is and can only be God and God alone. God in me and me in God. That's it. Y'all, there isn't anything else ultimately. There isn't anything else. I suppose that's why I have such a hard time getting excited about politics these days. I just don't find much God there. You know, our collect for today that I read at the beginning of the service comes from the 8th century, what we call the Dark Ages. And it advises that we should pass through the things of this earth, temporal things, it says, in such a way so as not to lose things which are eternal. I would suggest to you that that is was good advice then, and it is good advice today as well. Amen. Amen.